Since the dawn of the GAA in 1884, the telling of its stories have been just as important as the sports. Through the years, heroes and matches have been immortalised, inspiring generation after generation. But some of its most important stories have also gotten lost or turned into legend. And in this series, we will explore some of the GAA's most fascinating forgotten tales, separating rumour from reality and myth from the truth that is often more amazing than the fiction. I'm Michael Foley.
And I'm Ciaran O'Hara.
So join us for Over the Bar, exploring the histories of the GAA.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
G.E. Cordia, welcome to the latest edition of Over the Bar, the Gaelic Games History Podcast. Mick, it's starting to feel like an inter-county season.
That's because it is an inter-county season. Couple of days in, first round of league fixtures, all the people are back out, the cold is biting, the discussions are starting. The lad that you think might make it for the championship that you see in round one of the league. All those little nuggets that you're hoping you can carry all the way to the summer are starting to show themselves.
Yeah, we got a little league of our own. And that kind of leads us to the question I've got for you this week, which is, how did the national leagues begin?
Yeah. And I've said this quite a few times now at this point on this podcast, where we're not tied to time here. We can talk about anything anytime, but I suppose anniversaries are a big part of what we do, whether we like it or not. And when the opportunity comes up to talk about something on a little birthday or something like that, it's good to do it. So
we're revealing state secrets there now. People are going, I bet those guys just do a little Google of what anniversaries are occurring in 2026.
If only we were that organized. But the one that we did know about is the fact that this year, 2026, marks the centenary of the first national leagues, or at least a culmination of the first national leagues. I'm sure there's people out there going, hang on a minute now. 1925 was when the first league campaign started, which is true, but they didn't finish up until well into 1926, and more of that as we go along.
And as we know from those days, isn't it just a miracle that they did finish in 1926?
It truly is. When objections were the order of the day, they were the in thing. They were like the new rock and roll objections at the time. And also, as we'll come on to, arriving at matches late. That was the hot ticket of the era. Just being fashionably late, but so fashionably late that you lost points. That was the small problem there. But
this is going to be a windy journey in that case.
It's a bit windy, but let's start for veteran listeners of this podcast. Let's start somewhere that we've been before, just to ground ourselves in this. So I'm going to go back to the GA Congress of 1925, April 1925, which is where the idea for the national leagues was first created, was first proposed.
God, that seems, if memory serves me correctly now, that is a busy Congress, because we have discussed it a few times.
We certainly have. It's come up at least 2 episodes anyway. A lot happens. I mean, again, take it as read. Congresses by their nature, or congri, I'm not sure what the plural of Congress is, but anyway, they tend to be dull affairs. Even when exciting stuff happens, it can be quite dull getting to the bit where the exciting thing is decided on.
And then they adjourn.
And then they adjourn. And as Ciaran, your long trawl through the Congress records of the 1890s for our What is County episode that I would urge everybody to go back and look at. All about a good adjournment. They adjourned congri or congresses for maybe a year if they felt like it. But at least in 1925, they had a busy, interesting agenda. So before we get to the leagues, other things that happened, right? P.D. Breen was re-elected GA president, Wexford man.
Which would have significant consequences for the counties of Mayo and Galway later that year.
Exactly. It's one of
I
those
refer you to the episode on how both Mayo and Galway were declared All-Ireland champions in 1925.
Yes, we're only going to touch on that particular issue very likely in this episode because God knows it's a tang compared to the web I'm about to weave. That's an unbelievably tangled one, the 1925. Well worth going to have a listen to it. Anyway, P.D. Breen, Wexford man, back in as GA president. The ban on foreign games was retained. They had a vote, no problem there. Yeah, we're quite happy to ban our members from playing anything apart from Gaelic games. Interesting one. A motion was carried allowing players living away from home to declare for their non-native county. So if you were a Mayo man, for example, Ciaran, living in Dublin, you could now, at the start of the year, say, I'm going to play for Dublin this year, not Mayo, and that would be fine. Whereas previous to that, you had to line out with your chosen county. That was the rule. At least one,
which also throws up several of the issues which arise in that 1925 championship regarding eligibility. Everything's connected.
It really is. The GA is just one big long chain of links together. You're really keen for people to go back and listen to that 1925 episode.
I really think you should go back and listen to that 1925 episode, everybody.
Just spare me a half an hour before you go. Let's let me get through this. So those things happened. At least one All-Ireland Senior Championship semi-final to be played in Munster. We are also on the cusp of the Hogan Stand becoming the Hogan Stand, which again, we'll direct people back to our episode on why, I suppose, the names of the different parts of Croke Park and why they're named that. There was talk of a bronze bust from Michael Hogan out the front of the Hogan Stand, and also that the stand did, I suppose, what was there to be named the Hogan Stand. That was brought by Roddy Nealon, who we mentioned before, Tony Nealon's father, the great Tipperary hurler and administrator. His dad was Roddy, and he brought the idea to name the Hogan Stand the Hogan Stand. So all of that was discussed at this Congress. But in the middle of it all, as I say, the idea of a national league for hurling and for football was proposed and went through. And again, Ciaran, another shout back to another episode. You remember our episode many, many moons ago now on why Cork wear red.
Of course.
You may remember that the man who went to collect the red jerseys from the Temperance Hall up on Barrack Street. I'll say no more than that. People go back. When you're done with the 1925 episode, go listen to the Why Do Cork Wear Red episode.
This is just one big cross-promotion episode.
It's just enormous. I had no idea we were going to go here, but here we are. This is it. I mean, slick doesn't even begin to describe what's going on here. Sean McCarthy, the same man who did that and would become GA president in time, proposed the idea of a national league. Now, he was initially, I think, speaking for hurling, but, you know, it covers both. He said, and the reason why do we want a national league? He said, well, many people couldn't afford to travel to see the big matches in the championships. And he said also that the Gaels, our old friend, the Gaels, did not visit each other half often enough. So this proposal would give everybody a chance to see matches and to visit each other across the provinces. And that lovely idea. He also proposed that the old Croke Cups that people might have come across, which were these kind of football and hurling competitions in the 1910s, that got so popular that they helped basically to purchase Croke Park and whatnot, that the cups for those competitions have been discontinued. We'll use those cups now for the leagues. So he was backed up by a man called William Clifford, who at the time was the chairman of Limerick County Board, and in 1926, the following year, would become GA president. He thought this was a tremendous idea as well. He reckoned, let's go with the hurling, and we'll go with the football then. We'll kind of do it in bits. But as it turned out, they kind of both roughly started off at the same time. But for the purposes of clarity, Ciaran, because God knows, clarity is a rare thing in the GA in 1925, 1926. I'm going to go with the hurling first, and we can move on to the incredible...
I've got questions before you go there.
Oh, yes. Go.
So we're a couple of years into the existence of the Free State and partition and all the rest of it, and I'm thinking, how are you going to run competitions where potentially teams are going across border. But I'm also thinking sport in general in Ireland is a bit up in the air. So we would have had, up until partition, there was an All-Ireland soccer league, right? Which would have been popular and would have then become the Free State Soccer League. So how much of this is because they just want a league competition to compete with other league competitions?
You've hit on something there. So in the same way, and again, does anything happen in the GA for the first time, really? The conversations we have now about, the condensed season and the impact on the GA's ability to compete with other sports and all the rest of it. Same conversations being had here. Back in the early 1920s, all you had was the football and hurling championships. And when they were over, everything was over. So they were very conscious, of in this new Ireland, we're going to have to compete with our competitors. We're going to have to give the people something else to dissuade them from going to rugby and soccer games in the autumn and the winter and into the
thus
spring.
Leading themselves to damnation and a ban from Gaelic games.
Well, exactly. I mean, these things go hand in hand. We're banning you from going to rugby and soccer, but here's the sweetener. We're going to have a whole new competition so you can go to see us all the time. Isn't it great? So, it's a win-win. So, that was very, very much there as well. Now, it wasn't mentioned in those terms at Congress. So this wasn't really mentioned at the Congress. It was very much more, it's like a public service that we're doing here. We're going to give people an opportunity to play each other more and give people who can't afford to go to the championship games chances to go to their local ground and to see matches. That was another thing as well.
I have another question. If it's more affordable, then presumably the price of entry is much cheaper, that they have considered so much the needs of the Gael that the charge at the gate has been similarly reflected.
I'll be honest with you, Ciaran. The detail on that matter is quite sketchy from the time. And they don't concern themselves with such grubby things as money and whatnot. But I will say this much. What we notice when the league starts, right, is that everybody thinks it's a very good idea. And the crowds at times seem to be quite good. But they're not always that good. And for example, after a couple of months of the hurling league, Offaly are involved in the first national hurling. So when it came to looking at their own accounts in the early spring of 1926, the Offaly County Board could look at the balance sheet and go, we've actually made a loss of £35, 2 shillings and 11 pence. Funding.
That's a lot of moolah.
That's a lot of money funding the county team in this new league thing. And no one's turning up. They say winter is a bad time for people to be attending games. No one's going to go. It's miserable. And also, the point is made by a delegate called Sean Robbins. I'm not sure what club he was from, but maybe someone in Offaly might know where Sean Robbins was from. But he said the idea of continuing games after the championship to counteract soccer and rugby had so far failed. So, to your point, it doesn't look like...
He is letting us in on what the unsaid was at that Congress. You can picture them working the room going, we're going to put this motion, we need your support, but this is vital for us to compete against rugby and soccer. Yeah.
That's the vibe. That's definitely the vibe. We're doing it. This is a public service, but it's also, there's something else going on here. So in terms of the hurling...
Mr. Robbins did not get the memo on the keep it stum.
Well, certainly about what are we talking? So that the leagues actually started in October of 25. The hurling league started in October 25. So what are we talking? 2 months, about 3 months, 4 months after it. Offaly had lost sufficient amounts of money that Sean Robbins didn't care, I'd say, what anybody thought. This is just how it is now. So as I said, the hurling starts in the October of 1925. And just you mentioned there about partition. So the partition element and the establishment of Northern Ireland and Free State, it doesn't really impact the hurling league because the 12 teams that take part are all down south, essentially. So the teams that are in it, and they're divided into 2 divisions, Division 1 and Division 2. It's quite simple and it's very good.
It's very familiar.
It is. Well, it is. It is. And it kind of works. So Division 1 You have Cork, Dublin, Laois, Galway, Tipperary, Limerick, and Kilkenny. So that's Division 1, all familiar names there. And in Division 2, you have Clare, Offaly, Kerry, Waterford, and Wexford. So it's a good, robust beginning to the whole thing.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
The very first National Hurling League games were played on the 4th of October 1925. Dublin played Limerick in Croke Park at 3 p.m. Laois played Cork in Portlaoise, and Tipperary played Kilkenny in Cashel. That was another thing, by the way, that I was going to say there. One of the reasons for the league was also to get games, I think, into more venues. So we'll come back. That is significant in relation to the Football League. But so, you're going to see more grounds being used now outside of Croke Park. That's an essential part. But those first games, for what they're worth, very much in keeping with how the league will always be. Some teams are depleted, some are stronger than others. It's a kind of who's around sort of thing. Dublin win against Limerick. The Laois Cork game is one of the strangest final scores I've ever seen. It ends Laois 11 goals, Cork 3 goals. That's it, right?
You're sure that they haven't mixed the column up?
No. I read the report. I read twice, and it's 11 goals to 3.
Was there no crossbar?
There was. I tell you, there seems to have been a shortage of Cork hurlers because it was a depleted team again. Tipperary Kilkenny shows the potential for this thing. 5,000 people turn up in Cashel for this game, and it's a really good game. Kilkenny win it, and kind of people come away going, "Yeah, this is good." Like, it's Tip Kilkenny. You would not have seen these two playing it unless they made an All Ireland final. Really, that would have been it. So that's great. We get on. It runs along through. There are no real hassles really in it. It rolls along through the autumn, into the winter, into the spring. By the way, there's no final. Just to reiterate that again, no final in this. So it rolls on to not the final, as I say, but the final league game actually ends up being the decider, which is very convenient for a new competition.
Hey, if you had that now, you'd be going, we did these seedings right. We got the fixtures right. We got the barnstormer at the right end.
Exactly. So it's Cork and Dublin. And again, it's winner take all. Cork have home advantage down in the athletic grounds, which again feeds into the idea of taking the games somewhere else other than Croke Park. 14,000 people turn up. It's a beautiful day. It's, again, it just all seems to be working so well. But of course, like in the background, it's a decider and it's all worked out nicely. But Dublin have been docked 2 points for fielding an ineligible team in one game. I think it was against Limerick. So they were docked 2 points. So that kind of changes things slightly in terms of the table. But anyway, Cork-Dublin, Cork win. So they're the league champions. And they will go on to win the 1926 All-Ireland hurling title, which makes them the first team ever.
First Rebels to do the double.
Exactly. So they're the league champions. So everything is positive, great, brilliant. Let's go. That's whatever. What is it? April 26th. Let's have the championship. Let's go again. That's the rhythm that develops in time to come. Can that happen in 1926? You're joking. Tipperary, and this, by the way, what they do next is deemed to be a fantastic statement of the health of the GAA and Tipperary itself. They go off and tour North America, off to the States. Championship, we'll worry about that when we come back, So they're gone.
Are they all teachers and civil servants? How are they?
I don't know. I really, it's an amazing decision to head off. So they're gone, right? They come back later in the summer. The Munster Championship can't start. Nothing can move until they come back. So the Munster Championship alone doesn't get finished until the 3rd of October 1926. And on top of that, it's a Cork Tip final, and it goes to 2 replays. So you got 3 games between
God
Cork and
above,
Tip.
the hay was well saved before that one.
Oh, stop. And I mean, again, consider that Cork have won their All-Ireland in 26 and they're coming straight back into a Munster final, essentially, against Tip. So the All-Ireland final, then everything's rushed off, really, but the All-Ireland final against Kilkenny is played on the 24th of October 1926. But in the style of the time, Ciaran, there's a fine long break then to get themselves organised to play the next league, which should be the 1926-27 league, but it doesn't start until the 6th of March, 1927.
Okay, so this is now it's feeling like a very familiar rhythm. This is like 21st century league. We're going to do it all in the spring.
Yeah, it is. But of course, no, they don't. They run it on till the following year. Oh, by the way, I've just remembered something that I should have said a moment ago. That Cork Dublin League final I mentioned in April 1926. Another big milestone this year is the centenary of the first radio broadcast. Isn't it the first sports broadcast ever on radio?
In Europe, yeah.
In Europe, yeah. It was the All-Ireland hurling semi-final between Kilkenny and Galway in August of 1926. Well, here's one for you, Ciaran. Here's an over-the-bar exclusive. There was talk of broadcasting the 1926 National Hurling League final. That was Plan A, Cork v Dublin, in April of 1926. Now, why it didn't come to pass, I don't know. But that was the original plan before they settled on doing the All-Ireland semi-final in August of 1926. Anyway, that's put that one to one side. Just nearly forgot that little nugget. Anyway, we're into 1927. We've got the league is up and tottering. We had 12 teams in for the first one for 1925-26. By 1927, we've lost 3 teams. 3 teams have gone, to hell with this. It's ridiculous. So Waterford, Kerry and Wexford pull out. So now instead of having...
And Offaly have doubled down on their losses?
Offaly have decided we're going to stick in. We're going to stay in this. Surely at some point we're going to start making a profit. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way. And the next time they check the accounts, they realise they've lost over £40 on the league. So it's really not working. They're not getting the gates in Borough at all, or Tullamore, or wherever they were playing the games. So instead of having...
would hate to defame anyone, but I wonder how adequately the satchels were checked.
Well, I know. Listen, it's too far back now to check. It's just too far back. But let's just say it just wasn't the leagues, no more than they didn't in the 90s, Ciaran, at times. It just didn't suit the Offaly hurlers every year. So instead of having two groups of 7 and 5 teams, now we just have this monster 9-team group. So 9 teams in Division 1, and we're off and running. And to be fair, they do their damnedest to get this thing played because they're worried. There's talk in the newspapers and everywhere that the league might get tangled up now in the championship again, no more than getting delayed in 26. So they try and get as many as they can done. So they get to May, and they've been packing the games in, to be fair. But by the first weekend of May, that's it then. It stops until October. So it's October 1927, we pick it up again. It's notable for a lot of surprise results. By the way, Cork they were scheduled, I should say, to play a league game in Turner's Cross against our old friends from Offaly. Unfortunately, that was in December of 1927, but unfortunately, Offaly didn't make it, quote, due to a breakdown in their conveyance. Again, surely that's an excuse we would surely have heard in the 90s as well for some Offaly players not making it to a league match.
Where did the train break down, Michael?
We don't know. But was it not? Could it have been maybe a motor car of some sort? Maybe a bunch of cars just hit a pothole somewhere down in Tipperary and just said, look, we'll just pull in here and we'll have our Sunday here rather than go down to Cork. Anyway, they didn't get to Turner's Cross, so the game wasn't played in Turner's Cross. There was other stuff. Kilkenny seemed to struggle with the whole thing as well. They couldn't field a team against Dublin for a game around that same time of year and look for a postponement into the early spring. They were also late taking the field again against Offaly. So Offaly claimed the points for that one. So the games were played up till the weekend before Christmas. They were really trying to squeeze this thing in.
Surely to God now, if this is de rigueur, that you're going to lose points if a team is late, acts of sabotage on the modes of conveyance of your opponent must be part of the strategy.
there's tires being let down and brake cables being cut and all sorts. God only knows what was going on. But again, I go back again, and there's one particular game that I came across in this particular league campaign that seems to me to epitomise the whole feeling around it. So Cork play Galway. They travel up to Galway to play. And they're greeted, when they get to Galway City, they're greeted by a band. They're paraded. There's tar barrels burning in their honour. They're like, the Cork County Board are so delighted with the reception that they vote on a vote of thanks to the Galway County Board and to the Galway
Can I
hurling
take it
people.
that all of this is delaying the arrival of the Cork team too?
Well, interesting you should say that, and I will come to that in a moment. But we have this great welcome for them, right? But only 1,000 people turn up to the game. So, everybody likes the idea of the leagues, but maybe no more than, well, maybe not now, because, there's an appetite there now because of the split season and all the rest of it. But the crowds don't always reflect the status or the intentions behind the league. Interesting you say, though, about time. So Cork win that game, and it ends up that Galway finish second in the league, right? Tipperary finish on top. Again, there's no final. So Tip are league champions, we think.
Well, mother of God, if they hadn't been, after spending the whole summer training up a storm on their American tour.
I know. They came back and hit the ground sprinting. So they are to be league champions. However, Galway, and again, in another callback to that 1925 episode, listeners may remember the mighty Stephen Jordan and the role he played in securing Galway their first All-Ireland football title. Well, Stephen Jordan took it upon himself, I think, that maybe I should have a look at trying to get Galway a good chance at winning their first hurling league title. So they went back to the Cork game and they said, lads, what time did Cork land onto the field that day? And they said, geez, I think they were late. They were late. And you said, well, you know what the penalty for being late onto a game is now? They forfeit the points. And if we get the points, you know what that does? And they went, well, what does it do? I'll tell you what it does, says Stephen, presumably to Stephen, because it really does look like Stephen Jordan was the absolute brains of the operation in Galway at this point. He said,
increasingly, I'm just going, to our Galway listeners, if you do not have a statue somewhere to this man.
Absolutely. He is, I love him. I love Stephen Jordan. But he says, we're going to appeal, because if we get the 2 points, it puts us level on points with Tipperary, and under the rules, there will be a playoff match to decide the league champion, effectively a league final. So Cork are sitting below, still saying, geez, we got a great welcome in Galway. I tell you, that was one of the best weekends we ever had. Tar barrels burning when we went up there, like, tar barrels, lads. And the next thing, they get the letter to say, Galway are objecting because you were late onto the field, so your win is null and void. We get you 2 points. Cork are like going, oh, hang on, what's all this? Jesus, Stephen, I thought we were friends, So Cork are going, no, we're not having that at all. So when it comes to Central Council and Luke O'Toole as General Secretary, it all has to be played out. Cork say, well, here's how it all played out. We got to Galway. Galway never told us what time the match was to start at. So first of all, Ciaran, they kind of took a punt on the train. Like, we better go early. Presumably it's going to be around 2 or 3. So we get up in good time. So they got up. How did they find out the time of the match? They said, we saw a poster on the way. We saw a poster that said, which, by the way, the time that Stephen Jordan said the game was meant to start was 2:45. So that's the time, right? 2:45. So Cork, in their minds, make it to the ground. They're there. They're on the field at 2:45. But the game is delayed, and they ask Stephen Jordan, well, Stephen, why was the game delayed? And Stephen says, well, I had to go and find umpires. That's what. Easy there, Ciaran, easy.
So Stephen caused the delay. Let's be frank about this.
It really does look like that. It really does look like that. But hey, listen, he's seeing an opportunity in his error. He's seeing an opportunity. So he kind of looks, and Luke O'Toole goes, well, do you know, what do you say about the time? Galway didn't actually tell us here at headquarters what time the game was going to be on either. So in the heel of the hunt, Galway's objection this time, their tilt for another committee room shot at a national title falls short.
Okay, so we can have a statue for Stephen in Tuam, but perhaps not in Athenry.
Maybe not, but you got to give marks for a trier. Like he really did. He went to the limit with this one. So Tipperary, by virtue of that decision, are finally proclaimed league champions for the, what would you call it, the 1926, 27, 28 season.
Which surely should be grounds for another trip somewhere.
Well, I could have only imagined they probably went to Australia or somewhere like that after that. So I'm going to leave the hurling there because we could go on. Suffice it to say that there was further format changes. We've already had 2 format changes in the first 2 years. We're all very well acquainted with the efforts all the way through the years to try and make the league as user-friendly as possible for teams, particularly in hurling. It happens from the very beginning. So there are constant changes. Equally, the league seasons run on forever. It's really not until around 1933 that you get into a kind of a rhythm where they start in the autumn, they run through to Christmas, they resume in the spring, and you get a final somewhere in April, May, somewhere around that time. That becomes the standard, but it takes until 33. It takes from 25, really. It takes 8 years for the hurling league to properly bed in. But compared to the first year of the football, the hurling is a roaring success.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
How badly did the football start in that case?
It's not so much that it started badly. It was just coming in at a bad time. Again, that 1925. I mean, essentially, Ciaran, can you, in a nutshell, can you just very, very quickly, and I mean really quickly, explain why the 1925 Football Championship was a fiasco in terms of how long it took to play the bloody thing?
Well, we had the longest series of games ever in Connacht. We had a situation where Kerry were kicked out of the championship for fielding an ineligible player. Cavan were kicked out of the championship for fielding an ineligible player. Wexford attempted to obtain an All-Ireland place by accusing Mayo of fielding an ineligible player. And, sometime in late 1925, having declared Mayo as All-Ireland champions, Galway went on to beat them in the Connacht Championship, and Stephen Jordan persuaded all in Central Council that made them All-Ireland champions. Is that it?
That's basically it. I mean, there's loads more to it, but that's basic. The point I'm trying to make is that you have an incredibly convoluted, tangled football championship of delays, replays. It's a mess. It's a total mess. And you've got a new football league coming into this, which, if you think about the hurling league, which had 2 tidy groups of 12 teams, right? The football, as formats go, it's an unholy mess. Let me just count. I actually haven't counted them yet, but let me just count how many groups there were. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There was 7 groups of teams starting out the first National League. And this is how they broke them up. By the way, they broke it up in regional pods. So to your point about partition.
Did they think they were playing this during COVID or something?
I mean, maybe that's where the GA got the idea. Like, in terms of partition and the crossing of the border and so on and so forth, there is little to no reportage of any hassle for teams crossing the border, possibly because it's regionalized to a large degree. So Connacht, for example, played for something called the Railway Cup. Now, people of a certain age will be familiar with the Railway Cup as being the interprovincial championships. In Connacht, you had a Railway Cup tournament that it seems to have kind of been played all the way through the 1910s and into the 20s. In this particular year, there are only 4.
May have been a precursor to the Gael Lynn Cup and the FBD to some extent.
Absolutely, which we touched on in a pre-season tournament episode just recently.
Which says that I didn't do enough digging, really.
Not at all. This one was hard because even I went back to try and find a little bit more out about it, and it's very, very difficult to find out when it started and when it finished. My guess is that it finished in this year. This was the last iteration of the Railway Cup in Connacht. They used it as a league qualifier. So no finals in the hurling, but there will be a final in the football, right? So for Connacht, 4 counties, everybody apart from Galway, basically. Why Galway weren't not in it, I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps Stephen Jordan planned on getting Galway to play the league champions afterwards and get the National League title off them.
Very nicely done. There was only, but again, in a typical Connacht fashion, they only had to play 3 games, but it took them 4 months. So the Connacht Railway Cup went from June to October 1925. But I suppose that, in theory, that was the first league game.
And to be fair, let's bear in mind that during this time, Sligo were playing Roscommon 6 times.
It's a desperate.
Galway
mess.
Are playing Leitrim 3 times. Mayo are barely playing.
It's awful. Like, so the first league game, technically speaking, is a Connacht Railway Cup game between Sligo and Leitrim, played in June of 1925. So that's the first football league game ever. If we move down through the other provinces, Leinster is divided into 3 groups of 4 teams. So you have Leinster 1, 2, and 3. The Munster Football League is in existence. So in that episode, if I was doing, who did the McGrath Cup? Oh no,
I did that too.
You did that too, didn't you? Yeah. Well, the Munster Football League ran from October 1925 to June 1926. So you can see how this is going. That was won by Kerry. By the way, the Leinster competitions between the 3 of them went from July to November 1925. The McKenna Cup then was divided into 2 groups. You had the Northwest group, which included Cavan, Fermanagh, Tyrone, and Donegal, and the Northeast group, which was Antrim, Armagh, Monaghan, and Down. Derry being the missing team there. They played from November 25 to April 1926. So when all of those different little bits and pieces had been played off, they had league quarterfinals. Well, they had 1 league quarterfinal between Sligo and Longford. They had 2, sorry. They had Sligo and Longford and Laois and Kerry. Then the semi-finals were Dublin, Antrim, and Sligo and Laois. And of course, it being the era of the objection, there'd have to be an objection in this, wouldn't there? So Sligo played Laois. Laois were hot favourites to win the game, but Sligo won, and it was a massive surprise. It was about the only notable thing about the Football League, because compared to the hurling, it hadn't taken on at all. Like, the crowds were small, the teams were a bit meh. Everybody was just, I think it's the whole 1925 championship just sort of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and the league really struggled to get off the ground. And also the fact that they were regional tournaments. You weren't getting these novel pairings at all. You were just getting what you were used to. So why would you bother going, even, what was the point? So Sligo Laois replayed. The reason for it, there was irregularities again in the team list. Same carry on again. There was 2,000 people at the replay, and this time Laois do the job. They hammer them, actually, 4-6 to 1-4. So the final anyway ends up being Laois and Dublin. And instead of playing it in Croke Park, to give it a chance, it's September 19th, 1926 by now, by the way. So, I mean, we've had a tournament that began in June 1925, finishing in September 1926. They go to New Ross, of all places. That's what the venue for the first Football League final is, New Ross.
In a neutral game between Dublin and Laois.
Yeah, exactly.
No ground in Newbridge or Athy or...
I'm just looking again at the fact that the president of the GAA at the time is Wexford. So I'm wondering that maybe before he left office, because this is around the time that Mr. Clifford from Limerick took over, maybe the deal was done that the football league final will be in New Ross. Anyway,
Perhaps all the Dublin fans went on a ferry and the Laois fans had just taken over all the trains.
They just said, look, we've all ended up in New Ross somehow. But let me tell you, not many travelled. So it was a really poor attendance, awful game. Laois, 2 goals and a point. Dublin, a goal. Laois are the first Football League champions. Hip, hip, hurrah. And by the way, just to complicate it even further, right? You'll remember that you might be wondering, how did Dublin get to the final? Because we had Laois and Sligo, right? Dublin beat Antrim. But how did Dublin get out of this 3-team thing, right? They had an inter-group competition for the Leinster winners in their 3 groups. So Longford, Dublin and Laois all played to get out of Leinster. It was like an unholy mess, an absolute unholy mess of matches that didn't need to happen. And by the way, there was more disputes in that little intergroup as well. Longford basically just refused to play their last game after some issue in their first game against Dublin. It's just a mess. How are you feeling about it so far? Do you think the league has a future here?
Yeah, I'm thinking if this was supposed to challenge league soccer and league rugby, it would be far easier to put their results and tables in the newspapers.
It really would. It really, really would.
Love the free episodes of Over the Bar? Then take your passion further with the Corja Club membership. For €5 a month, you'll unlock bonus series and member-only shows, hear the podcast first and ad-free, and get behind-the-scenes access through detailed notes, a newsletter, and Q&As. It's the ultimate GAA history experience, curated by Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara just for you. Upgrade your listening, support the show. Join today at overthebar.club.
Another thing that we learned from that 1925 episode was that the GAA had an awful reputation at this point for being unable to play their competitions in an orderly fashion. It was a really bad PR problem for them. And this just feeds more into it, this inability to get competitions played off. And it does seem to be primarily football is the big, big problem. So if you look at the records now for the national leagues, you will see a gap for the 1926-27 season in football. That's because this particular one went on so late. They went, look,
They didn't play the next one.
They're not even going to start. They didn't start until well into 1927. And it took them until like April 28 to play this one. Again, they decided we're going to upturn everything. I think they may have learned the lesson that playing regional games against the same teams meeting each other all the time is not going to work. So instead, and big loads of groups as well, it's a waste of time. So instead, they had 3 groups this time. They had the Northern Group, the Southern Group, and the Western Division. The Northern Division consisted of Kildare, Louth, Armagh, Down, Cavan, Meath, Monaghan, Dublin and Tyrone. And the Southern Division was Kerry, Laois, Wexford, Cork, Kilkenny, Clare and Tipperary. The Western Division was small. They didn't kind of extend the same sort of hand of help to Connacht. They just bunged Mayo, Sligo, Leitrim and Roscommon back in together. Again, no Galway. Don't know what's going on there, but no Galway.
Saving themselves for the objection post-final.
It would appear to be the case. And again, we have an interdivision group at the end. The winners of the 3 groups go into this little 3-team playoff. So it's Kerry, Kildare and Mayo. And the winner of the interdivisional group is going to be the champ. It turns out that it's Kerry versus Kildare, which is absolute manna from heaven.
One of the big rivalries of the time.
At this point, Kildare were the 1927 All-Ireland champions. They had beaten Kerry in that final. Kildare will go on to be the 1928 All-Ireland champions. So what you have now is you've got the 2 of them meeting in between in this league final. Tremendous interest in it. They wisely put it on in Croke Park as well. So 10,000 people turn up. This is better. There's special trains coming up from Kerry for it. It's played, as I say, April 29, 1928. And it's a very fine game. Very, very high standard. And Kerry win by a point. So it's adding spice to the rivalry. It's kind of creating something. So out of the horror of the first 2 seasons, at least they've gotten Kerry, Kildare out of it. They both play very strong teams as well. So they're given due respect to the competition. So that's good. But again, if you look back to, I'm not going to go any further with those football leagues either, because again, it gets awfully messy.
No, I mean, the next story clearly is, Mayo become the kingpins of league football.
And I don't, and you know what? I don't want to rain on your parade by going through how they win some of those leagues. So let's not, right? Let's just not. But suffice it to say that it takes even longer for the Football League to settle down. 1937 before you start to see some semblance of consistency here, where you can say, oh yeah, that's the league season now. Up till that, again, people are trying to make it work, but they're shoehorning games in left, right, and centre, and stuff is getting postponed and cancelled, and there's new formats, and it's just a holy mess. But out of these things, and you know what? Maybe that's part of the story of the leagues too, Ciaran. Like, I mean, up till probably since they went calendar year, particularly in Gaelic football anyway, calendar year, and ordered the either Division 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, or the 1 to 4 format that we have now. It's really been the only time that the leagues have got the kind of momentum that kind of, I suppose, delivers the status that you'd like to think that second national competition would have. Because before that, I mean, you'll remember as well as I do going to pre-Christmas league matches, and kind of even the quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals were often non-events. Like, it was really hard. It's always been really hard to sort of invest the league with the kind of, I suppose, urgency, and I use that word momentum again, that maybe they need. But they kind of have it now. But certainly the seeds of that difficulty were sown from the very, very beginning.
I'd say that's all fascinating stuff. It's great to see so many, recurring characters in our episodes.
Well, it's nice that we're starting to recognise these people, isn't it? Like, we didn't know who Stephen Jordan was a while back, but now he's like, I just want to see more of Stephen Jordan. What other capers did he get up to, like?
Yeah, you have this image at one point of him being, like the Frank Murphy of his age, and then you're like, oh no, Frank would not be so brazen.
No, there's a touch. He's kind of he's a cross between Frank Murphy and Derek Trotter. And I mean that the best for any of Stephen Jordan's relations or people who cherish his memory. I say that with love. I love Stephen Jordan. He's, of all the characters we have come across over the course of this series, Stephen Jordan is absolutely my number one.
Okay, I can't share that sentiment, but yeah, I've got a grudging respect for Stephen Jordan. I have to admit, I was half waiting for him to say the reason, to pop up and, oh, Galway don't need to enter this because we're being represented by the Connacht champions.
At some point, just to land himself in after the final and have a second final. Let's see, can we win that? At the very least, anyway, let's have a match for the trophy this time.
Okay, that's where we will leave it for today, folks. The usual request. If you are listening to this in Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're getting your podcasts, hit the rate button. Give us 4 stars or above. I beg of you.
He means it, folks. He's on his hands and knees.
Share these episodes with someone that you think will enjoy them. If you enjoy them, you must know somebody else who will. And most of all, continue to like, continue to listen. We couldn't do it without you. So until next time, it's Slán from me.
And it's Slán from me.